Well, well, well. All right. Just getting back in the groove of things. I just built the coolest amp. I cannot wait to show it to you all, probably tomorrow or the day after. It's an 8-pill 50-volt bipolar with a switch mode's power supply in it. Man, you put 125 watts in that thing, it does 3,200 watts out. Put 150 watts in it, it does 3,500 watts out. The theoretical max is going to be about 4,000 watts. That's what I spent my day working on. Tomorrow, I've got to rewire that 48 pill again for the third time. But it's late in the evening. It's like 1 a.m. in the morning here. And before I went in the house, I told myself I'd take a couple minutes and I'd look at this Autek watt meter. My buddy Glenn calls me and says to me, Mr. BBI, I can't find anybody that wants to work on this watt meter. It's a great watt meter. It's a really great watt meter. I can't find anybody to work on it. And out of the compassion of my heart, I said, Glenn, just send it to me. It can't be that complicated. It's a watt meter. Apparently these things keep their value. I'm coming at this one blind, and I have no experience with the Autek watt meters whatsoever. Never even heard of them until this one showed up. Then I Googled them, and I guess the ham community loves these watt meters. I'm impartial, I guess would be the best way to put it. So this is the WM1 computing. You know, I don't see any processor chips in there. I see a couple op-amp ICs and stuff in the back, but now, Glenn, I didn't have to take this too far apart. We did do a couple things to this. We cleaned it first off because it just absolutely reeked of cigarette smoke, and I didn't want to work on it until I got it clean. So you got it clean, and it is fully repaired. I say that right up front. So we'll start here. Please look at the date, you guys. I've had this for a couple months. It's like I told Glenn. I said, if you send me this thing, I'll work in it on my spare time. Please don't bug me, harass me, or bother me about it, and I'll get there when I get there. And he's been cool enough to literally leave me alone. I just got back from my trip to Hawaii, once-in-a-lifetime trip to Hawaii, and he was super cool, and he called me. He goes, can you please take a look at my watt meter? Well, I actually looked at this thing last month. And figured out what was wrong with it last month. I shot a video for that, and I was intending on keeping it inside my camcorder here, and I was going to pull it out and stitch the whole thing together, and you guys would have never known, since this wonderful workspace never changes, but I can't seem to find it, so we're having to start from the beginning. Okay. Dear Mr. BBI, in the remote RF box you will find a burnt resistor. Also, can you calibrate this meter for 3K? Like it says it can be done in the manual? Yes, and no, it wasn't a burnt resistor. So Glenn, we get to looking. He also sent this expanded schematic, and I'm glad he did, because the schematic that's in this manual here was in such small print that I couldn't find the actual value of the part that was burned up. So if we look real close here, we'll see this is a 1.2 UH inductor. Okay, it's an actual inductor. So when I took the element apart, the coupler over here, focus, you'll see that there's a little inductor here. Okay, this is the primary pickup. So you have your passive pass-through induction. So you've got your RF will come, let's see, in on this side. It comes out on this side over here. And it passes through this little coil. Well, that coil actually picks up a little bit of the RF. It induces a little bit of a signal, okay? And that's what drives your meter. But part of your SWR bridge is that you have to have a physical coupling. So then they isolate that. They lift it just a little bit with this inductor, okay? It's also a way of controlling the flow of RF. That inductor lets go when the SWR gets too high and there's too much power run through the meter, and they turn into this. Now it looks like a resistor, but it's not. So my friend there at Zane Big Rig Radio, I called him when I was in Hawaii, and I said, buddy, I need a 1.2U inductor, and he proceeded to send me one. Well, he sent me two. And so I went ahead and I repaired this. Now, I was preparing myself to go through the awesome process of taking this whole thing apart. This is a sheet metal stamped but tack welded together cabinet that this is in, and this is actually very robust. It's very solid, very well put together. Nice heavy duty toggles, straight out of the 70s and 80s here on the front. This reminds me of a bird watt meter, or not a bird, but a Radio Shack watt meter I had back in the day. But all that aside, we discovered this thing will not run unless it has power. So I'm not too sure what they're computing on the inside of this thing, because I scoured over the schematic, and as far as I can tell, there's just a couple op-amp ICs that require some basic reference voltages to be able to run. But on the other hand, this thing, without having to touch anything on the inside, is actually fairly close in accuracy. Okay, and what I mean by accuracy is I'm basing it against my bird watt meter going into a dummy load. So there's guys that say you want to write down your numbers. So you run up a load with the radio and you write down your numbers into your bird meters, and then you go and you recalibrate everything. I didn't have to do any of that. You're pretty lucky because this thing is really close. So let me slip the back on this thing here real quick. Now here's your remote line coupler. Out and in and out. This is open to the atmosphere. I'm not a big fan of that in the back. Now, I was talking with Glenn on the phone, and he really wanted to make this thing read 3,000 watts. So I said, so let's do some basic math, okay? Or not basic math. Let's think about this logically, Glenn. And he agreed with me, so I'm going to lead you down the same train of thought. Instead of this being fully deflected at 2,000 watts, full deflection would be 3,000 watts, which would not be that hard to do. You move that potentiometer, and you reduce the input signal, and you zero it for 3,000 watts. Okay, you do the same thing for the 200 watt scale, and then there's a physical resistor that I have to change in there for the 20 watt scale. Okay, the problem is when you go to read it, yes, Glenn will probably be the last person to ever use this watt meter. The next guy down the line would be like, man, I'm driving the hell out of it, and I can only get, 2,000 watts now is going to be 1,000 watt scale. That makes any sense. And so on and so on and so on. It'd become very confusing to make it read, but you could easily make this calibrated for full deflection at 3,000 watts. No problem. Could totally do that. It'd be very confusing for the end user to actually read it unless they're the ones that set it up. Now, he wanted to do that. I talked to him about it. I said, Glenn, I don't think that's a very good idea. And he goes, oh, okay, fine. Just fix the meter. I said, oh, okay. Do whatever you want. What happens is this scale is only linear from 0 to 2,000, right? So if we make this 3,000, so is that 2,000 and that's 1,000? No, that's now 2,000. 500's 1,000, maybe. It's not linear. So when we go to the 200 watt scale, that'd be FUBU. FUBARD. It'd be very confusing to try and make sense of it. Now, there's only one power trim pot in this meter, period. So, and it's basing all the adjustments. So for you to make any adjustment to this, it's going to screw up all three of the scales, is what I was getting at, Glenn. And we'll just stick with what we got. Let's go ahead and we'll hook up the I'm going to hook up my Connex 4400 high power turbo, which does about 140 watts, 150 watts, something like that. I'm going to hook that up to that coupler. And give me a second, I want to reset the camera. Okay. So we're all set up now. The Autek's on the 20 watt scale. And we're going to use this here, which is our 5 watt element. We're going to make it read forward. All the meters are reading right to left. Okay? It's a 5 watt slug, 100 watt slug, and a 100 watt slug. Alright? And we're just going to run some low wattage through it to see how accurately it's reading. So, first things first is let me turn on the radio here. I got the dead carrier all the way down. We're an average here. Everything's an average except for this last meter down here on the far right, which is in peak. Now it's showing us on that far left hand scale that we're putting just a hair over a 2-watt carrier out. And the Autek settles down, and it's showing us just a hair above 3. I can't go any lower with that. I can't. If I don't talk. That's my heartbeat. I'm holding the microphone down. You can see that thing wiggling. That's my heartbeat in the microphone. It's right on 4 watts. Turn the mic gain down on the radio. It's right at 4 watts, nice and solid. Or, pardon me, 2 watts, nice and solid. 1, 1.5, and 2. Which is good. So now I'm off the key, and look at how long it takes for this needle to fall back. Oh, we're in peak. Let's go to average. Right at 2 watts. Turn the peak meter on. Reads a hair higher, but not much. So now we're going to go to the 20 watt scale. We're going to turn that back around. Pardon me, the 200 watt scale is the position that we're in. Hello. Nope, turn the mic gain back up. Hello, audio. That's in peak. And let's go to average. So now we're going to look at this middle scale versus this scale. We're in the 200 watt scale, so full deflection is 200 watts here. 100 watt scale in average. Hello, audio. It's showing us about 55, 54 watts. And over here we're seeing about 55 to 60 watts average. Hello. So dead nuts on the money. Now we're going to turn on the peak side, and we're going to disregard these meters, and we're going to look over here. Okay? In PEP. Hello. My dog's mad at me because I'm waking him up. You could hear him in the corner over there yawning at me. Dad, quit making so much noise. Alright. What I just did is I turned the multiplier up. So now this is a 200 watt. Okay, so this is reading the same. This is 200 watts fully deflected. That's 200 watts fully deflected. Hello. We're showing 150 watts. Hello. We're showing 100, 120, 140. Hello. About 155. Hello. As you can see, as I modulate that, the needle actually falls back. It swings forward really fast, then it backs up, creeps backwards. Hello. So the 200 watt scale, dead on the money. Now we're going to go to the 2000 watt scale. I'm going to pull the 100 watt slug out. I'm going to put a 1000 watt slug in its place. And I'm going to leave that in 2x. Hello, audio. Hello, audio. Hello, audio. Hello. It's just creeping. It just creeps up over the 100 watt mark. We come over here and look in the 2x position. Hello. Pretty close to the same numbers. So Glenn, I feel very comfortable in telling you that this thing is set. That doesn't make any sense. Let's compute that again. $100, $500. Hello. Hello. 150 watts, 150 watts. 200 watt scale or 2000 watt scale. Hello. 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 Show me 110 watts. Interesting. Very interesting. I think we might need to bring some other technology into play here. I'm seeing a deviance in the scale here. Interesting. Alright. Give me just a second. I feel silly now. You can tell it's 3 o'clock or 1:30 in the morning here. Okay, so what I did is I got out my Bench 2 pill, which I know that if I run that Connex into this little box, it's going to produce roughly 550 watts of peak power. 1,000 watt scale in PEP, 2,000 watt scale in PEP. So let's look at this again. Let me zoom back in on these meters. Make it a little bit easier for everybody else to enjoy what I'm seeing here. I feel silly now. I really do. 100 watt dead carrier. 100 watt on the Autek. 80 watt dead key here. 100 watt dead key displayed there. About 400 watts. About 500 watts. 490 watts of peak power. Audio. As displayed here. 500 watts. Okay. What are we showing over here? 500 watts. Let me go to the 2 times position. Now it's going to read roughly half. Audio. 500 watts. 500 watts, 500 watts. 500 watts. So now, let's re-verify that. I'm going to take the 100 watt slug out. Stick the 1,000 watt slug and average back in the hole. We're going to click the switch to average. Audio. About 125 watts average. 125 watts average displayed here. So all in all, Glenn, the Autek's dead on the money. I didn't have to adjust nothing, didn't have to tweak nothing, didn't have to change nothing. Just had to replace that little inductor for you and get it ordered and put it in. So guys, don't get excited. Oh my God, I can send my freaking dozy test center to BBI and he'll fix it. No, I will not. No, I will not. This meter was special to Glenn, and that's the only reason I was willing to do it. He was at his last end of desperation to have somebody look at it, and that's the reason that I was willing to step forward and help him out. So please don't be thinking that I also want to get in the business of repairing meters. I just don't. I want to stay focused on amplifiers. Hell, down the road I might open the door up and work on radios or something if I get a wild hair at my ass. I don't want to go back to doing that. I did that for a lot of years as a kid. I'm not interested in doing it now. But from time to time, if you have a special little project like this, I'm not afraid to take it on. This is no big deal. This is very super simple. And the fact that he was able to supply me with the instruction manual and then the expanded, straight off the internet, off boatanchors.com, adjustment and manual for it was very helpful. So on that note, Glenn, I'm going to say, buddy, thank you. And gentlemen, that's how you reach me right there, that number right there. And if this is your first time watching my channel, please, for the love of God, click subscribe. Make sure to click the notification thing. That way you can find out when I'm doing more crazy shit like this. I try to do a video every day or the other day. I try to do, try to have enough projects on hand to where it's at least every other day I'm putting up a video. So we're looking at about 10 videos a month, 15 videos a month on average. So please, I enjoy your all support and following along. Click the subscribe button. And all that being said, gentlemen, my name is BBI, and without a shadow of a doubt, I am the biggest mud duck in Idaho. You can find me on at www.bbiamps.com, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and of course, right here on the Gargler. Okay, I'm going to box this puppy up, Glenn. We're going to send her home to you. The SWR bridge is working fully. I tested that by getting out an antenna tuner and screwing up my output aspect ratio from the dummy load forward. It's spot on the money. Yeah, I think you're good to go. Glenn, I appreciate you sending this out to me. You're in top shape, my brother. Gentlemen, I'm out of here. I'll see you guys. You have a good night. Bump, bump. BBI is gone.